Welcome to your D121 Computer Graphics 1 for your alternate assignment to do at home. We're going to do the Halloween Haunted Trail Flyer, and you're going to do it in Figma. So you're going to explore what options are available there, what alternatives you can do there, see if some things are quicker, some things are slower than doing it in Illustrator. So you're going to go to coursework, and you'll have a file started for you. So you're going to go down to Unit 8, and you're just going to click on this link here. And I'll click on that. And if you are logged into Figma, it should go here and say view only. If not, it might tell you to log in. So I'm going to go here, since I'm logged in, into my account, and duplicate to your drafts. And then when you do that, click on open down here. And then go up here, double click, and change the name. Put your last name, first initial on here. And that's all you should have to do. So that'll be in your account now. Now, what are we going to do here in Figma since we're not in Illustrator? First thing we want is we want some guides on here so we could be a ½ inch from the end. We do have a frame set up here, a letter frame. I don't have it locked or anything. So to use guides, you need your ruler showing. So if you don't have your ruler showing, I think they should, but you could always go over here to view and you could check rulers and make sure your rulers are here. And then you're going to drag rulers onto here. Now I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Now you may not be used to reading pixels, but remember 72 pixels per inch, that means 36 pixels will be ½ an inch. And what I like to do before we drag guides in, because you're going to drag guides in, but you might have a hard time lining it up using that. What I like to do is just take a rectangle and draw one, and I'll go over here, and width and height, I'll make it 36. And this will be like my little cheater. So I'll make that 36 and tab 36. So the width and height is 36 pixels. And then I'll just put that over here, let it bump to the side, and I'll go into my ruler and get a double arrow and just drag a guide so it locks right on the box. And then I'll go and move it up here. That way I don't even have to try and guess where I'm at or look at that little number. I'll let it lock right there. I'll move it over here, and then I'll drag a guide from the left side, let it bump on the box, and then I'll move this down here to the bottom, and then I'll drag a guide from the top and have it bump on the box there. So then you could delete this thing. You don't need it. You could drag it off or whatever. I'll just delete it. So now you have ½ inch margins. And I'll zoom out a little bit so I can see my page. I'll try to zoom in a little on my trackpad. And then what we'll do is we'll make that border with the gradient in the background. You remember that was our background. So we'll see if we could do that. That should be easy. Should be a rectangle, and we could use the guides here. I'll make a rectangle. And I'll go to fill down here, and remember in Figma, go to fill, click on the color, and then go up here to gradient and use linear. Now right now it's using gray, and then it's going to like a transparent gray. So remember up here, if you click up here and that one's selected, we used like a purple color. So I'm going to use purple up there, and I'll move this over. And if you want it more of reddish purple, you can move it over. If you want it darker, whatever. I'll kind of do that for now. Now on this side at the bottom, remember we had red. So I'll click here, and I'll move it over to red, and I'll click in red, and it's not showing red yet because it's still transparent down here. So make sure you move the transparency over. Now that's way too dark, and then in the middle we made yellow. So I'll click here, right on the bar here, and then move it over to yellow. And I don't want it too greenish, so I'll make it a little more golder. And I'll make it nice and light. And if you need anything in between, you can kind of go here and maybe like make a little pink here, and go over here, there's an orange, maybe make that a little bit lighter. And if you need any more yellows, you can actually Option or Alt drag on this and make a copy and put this on either side if you need more yellow there. And that's a pretty good gradient. And again, you can move these things here too. You could go here and move these things around. And if we work on our bottle exercise, that really helps being able to move those. So that's all I'm going to do right now for that. So I'll hit the X button, and then I'll put a stroke on it because I think we had a thick stroke on it, maybe 4 pixels. You could scroll sideways here and go up to like 4. It should do black by default. That's 7. It looks okay on screen, but it's probably too thick, so I'll make it 4. And that's okay right now. And then we could lock it. So this is our rectangle. I'll lock it, and I'll just call it gradient BG because that's our background. Now, how do we make those hills? Let me make sure this is locked. Yeah, it's locked. Now, how do we make those hills? If you remember in Illustrator, we made a rectangle, and then we used the pencil tool to draw over it. Now, they do have a pencil tool, but it does not let you redraw on paths like it does in Illustrator. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do something real rough. We're just going to take the pencil. Now be careful with this and just kind of make a hill. So, and I'm going to go out of it because I'm not going to try to make it rectangle and follow the side. So I'm just going to start here outside, and I'll zoom in just a little bit. And I'll go here and I'll kind of go down, and this doesn't have to be real good, just a little hill thing. And then I'll go out here, and you can hold shift, but I'm just going to kind of do it by hand. This may not be easy. Make sure you stay outside of the border there and get real close here and try to get right where you started, because it has an issue sometimes making it filled or making it a closed path. So if you click on it and then click on this, it should show the whole path, and you'll know it's closed if you can add a fill. So if you go here and just hit plus, that means I closed it. It's putting a fill on there, so everything looks okay. And maybe you want a green fill or something. I think we did like a light green fill, and I'll just do something like that for now. That looks a little too much. So something like that. I don't need a stroke. I could hit the minus sign for the stroke, and that doesn't look very good. But how do we block this off? Well, we can actually take a rectangle and just draw it over top. Now, you could draw things on the side and try and subtract, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw it right here, right where the border is and right where the guides are, and put it over top. There's a rectangle. Now, this is called vector. We'll change this name to hills. And now, if you select this one and then hold shift and select that one, do you remember what we're going to do? We're going to do an intersect, and we'll get the intersection. So we could go up here, and these tools up here, they have union, subtract, intersect. We'll use intersect, and then right away we'll flatten it. And it'll just be a path. That way you could change the name of intersect and just call it front hill. And it did take the gray color of the rectangle, and that's okay. You could go back and change it. And we could even scale it in a little so it doesn't go over the border. But just for now, I'll just change the color, and I'll just give it a green color for now. That's my front hill. Now, if you want to squash it down a little, you could bring it down a little bit, and you could even try to bring it in so it doesn't go over the border, but you might want to zoom in to do that so you get it just right. And unfortunately, it doesn't give you the little handles on the bottom here. I don't know if it does when you use the scale tool. I think this. Let me try it actually. Let me go over here to the scale. I don't use this a lot. I'll click on it. I'll go to the scale, and let's see. That works a little bit. I don't think it still doesn't give me bounding boxes to do it this way because I think it scales the whole thing. But that's okay. I still need to bring it in a little. So that's not really helping me. Anyway, I'm going to leave that alone right now, and I'll scale a little bit later. Now, I could copy this, or I could draw another one, and maybe I'll just draw another one. So I'll leave this one here, the front hill, and I'll take my pencil, and I'll draw another one in the back. And I'll kind of make it a little more hillish. It doesn't have to have a big valley in it or anything. I don't know if that really helped, although it was kind of nice for the design. But I'll keep drawing over here. This isn't really easy to draw with the pencil unless you have a mouse, and try to get right where you started. And I'll see if I got that right. I'm going to go back here to my move tool and click on this and make sure it's not getting separate paths. So let me just click on a fill here, and that didn't work. It didn't fill it. You see I'm putting the fill here and it's not doing it. So I'm just going to do it again. It's really tough to do this. And again, part of this is we're just kind of learning how this software works. And I should probably zoom in, but I'll make another hill here. And I'll go around. And again, what do we do here to make it closed? And again, if I'm missing some shortcut, I'll have to find it out. But I'm going right on here. And I think I saw it kind of lock on. So now let me click on it. And let me give it a fill. And it didn't work again. I'll just copy this. I'll drag copy. I'll make another one. I'll make this darker. And if I find a way that you could close those paths easier without trying to get right on where you started, I'll do that. But what I'll do is I'll just copy this. Maybe I'll flip it around. I'll go over here to Object and flip horizontal. And maybe I'll make it a little taller, whatever I have to do. And I'll take this one and put it behind there. Now, it's still called front hill, so I'll call this back hill. So making a Halloween flyer is a little more challenging in here, at least as far as the hills go. And I don't have any of that, wrinkle stuff. We don't have wrinkle stuff. We don't have a pencil that redoes some of those paths. And if I go in here, I'll make this look a little nicer. I'll zoom in here on the bottom and get that front heel kind of lined up. I'll grab the corner here and get that lined up. Now, granted, this should be the hardest part on here. I'll get that lined up. I'll get this one moved over just a little. I'll grab on this one, move this over a little, and that should be okay. Now, they're not the greatest hills. Now, you could use anchor points on here and going here and, you know, click on here, double click, and then highlight some of these anchor points, and move them around. But there's a lot here. You'd be better off like putting just a couple, you know, making a square, like just making with a pen tool and just making a couple anchor points and doing that. And again, what I'm saying is, let me just try it just to see if that's helpful. I'll hit done here because I'm no longer editing that. Let's say, you know, you didn't like this. You want it more of a rolling hill. What you could do is, instead of messing with the pencil, take the pen and kind of go around here. And this way you could kind of get it rectangle to start. I'll go around here and I'll go around here and I'll kind of go up and down again and up, and then just kind of finish it off here. And remember, to finish it off, then just hit escape. And now I made kind of a shape, and now if I fill that, it gets a fill shape, and I'll give it a darker green color. I'll give it the original green and darken it up a little, and then I'll put it behind the other one. And now that's a little smoother, and you could go in and add anchor points if you want and kind of move them around and do all that. That's fine too. Maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe you could go on here and go edit, and you could use this thing to edit it, and, you know, just bring some of these anchor points up, bring this down, and you could add more anchor points if you want. If you go in here with that not there, I'll click on there and I'll hit escape, and then I'll use the pen tool. I'll add an anchor point here, and then I'll hit escape. And then I'll go back to this and move these things around a little. So you could do that a little bit. That might be easier, might not. Again, we don't have effects in this program for that. There may be some other ones that you can find, and they do have plugins, so I'm going to show you that, but maybe I'll move this up a little. So that helps a little bit if you want to try that. If you struggle with the other one, and I'll go back to front heel, and I'll kind of bring that down a little. Actually, I keep forgetting I don't need the transform handles here. I could just go here and squash it. I was having issues squashing it because there's no handle there, but you can squash it that way. So I could do that a little bit. And I could go here and take off the stroke. And that's fine so far. And then if I want to make that little path in the front, we'll do that, and then I'll take a break here. I'll call this back hill, or mountains, whatever. I'll call that back hill. And I could lock these because I'm not doing anything with them right now. And what I'll do is I'll try it the same way. I'll try just making a rectangle down here. Gray rectangle. There it is. And I'll zoom in. And I'll go in here to edit. And I'll add an anchor point. I'll add one here, right on the side. And I'll hit escape because I don't want this connected. So hit escape. Now go here and add one here. And there you have the two anchor points. And I'll hit escape again. And what I'll do now is I'll go back to my arrow here and kind of move this in. Move that in like we did before. Move that in to get kind of that triangle shape. Now we were doing this with warp before. And then here I'm going to take my bend tool and go right on there. And what's odd is that anchor point seemed to go away. Let me go here and add the anchor point again. Escape. I'm running a surprise. I thought there was an anchor point there. It seems to... Maybe I didn't click on it long enough. I'll hit escape, and I'll hold there, and I'll click slowly, and then I'll hit escape. Now it's there. If I go on my bend tool there, it's there now. I don't know why it went away, but anyway, that's why we're trying this out. And now if I drag on that, I can make kind of this S shape. I'm just dragging with that bend, that bend tool up there, and that's kind of doing what we did with the warp, except now we're doing it to the actual path. And then if you're done pulling those handles, you can kind of move this in a little. You could move these handles around a little, or move the anchor points around a little if you want to adjust it. If you want to make a wider path at the bottom, now you're kind of doing it manually, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I'll go here and pull this in. It's just a couple little things. And again, part of it's just learning because I don't use Figma a lot. I'm still learning with Figma. trying to do things I've done in Illustrator. And then if you wanted to put any kind of gradient on here, I'll hit done. And you could just go to fill and just make a linear. It doesn't have to be anything special. I think on the top end I did kind of a brown color. So to get brown, I usually go to orange and then kind of go down like that. And then on the back color, I'll use brown again and then take off the transparency. It always puts it at transparent, so I'll put it up. And then I'll just make a lighter color on the end, something like that. And that's okay. And if you wanted to put a gradient on this front hill, you could. And that way we have our hill, we have this, and if you want to put a bat in there, I put this in there if you just want to practice tracing a bat. That's pretty easy. I'll do this and then I'll take a break. I'll go here and drag and then click on the point. I'll go here, drag, click on the point. I'll try to zoom in a little bit more. I'll go up here, drag, make that bat ear come out, click on the point. I'll just make it straight. I'll go here and drag a little to give him a little top of his head. Click on the point. I'll make it straight since the other side's straight. Then I'll go over here and drag it out. So they're kind of arched. I could fix these later. And click on the point and then look at that path, and I'll kind of look at the path from here to here, and maybe I'll just make a little one there and then make a little one up here, and I'll scroll up, and it has a little handle coming out, so I may be able to go here and just kind of drag out on it. Not too much because it'll make your screen scroll, and that's okay. Then I'll click, and then here you could go in the middle or you could go here. So I'll go in the middle, do a mini little kind of point there, and then I'll click. Then I'll go in here and do a little mini one, and then I'll click. You can click and drag too if you wanted to finish it off, and then click on the point. Now we have a long kind of arch here, so I might make a supporting one in the middle, kind of click and drag in the middle, and then you could go here and probably don't have to do anything. And here, little one in the middle, and then finish it off. Here I can make a little one in the middle, finish it off, scroll over, little one in the middle, little click and drag in the middle, finish it off. I'll do one in the middle here. Since it's kind of a long arch, not always a deep arch, but sometimes a long arch requires an extra point. And then I'll finish it off. And maybe you could do this without an extra point. You know, if you did that, that would be okay. And then I'll click, and then I could put a middle one here, or I could try to finish it off here. I'll put a little one here, little supporting one, and then I'll go up here, and I just have to click on that, and I can click and drag if I want, and then I would just hit done. Now if you're done and you go in, you're like, I don't like those ears or any of that stuff, you could click on this button again and go in here, and if you want to tweak the ears a little bit, you know, make it look a little nicer in here, you can do that. Not required because it's going to be little, you know, it's going to be a little bat, so you're going to have little ones here. This one looks a little odd here. I'll maybe pull this down a little so that kind of goes in there. That's okay. Again, it's a clip art bat, and I'll hit done again, and now I have my clip art bat, and I'll fill it. I don't need a stroke, so I'll hit minus, and then I'll fill it, and it's gray right now, that's why I can't hardly see it, and I'll make it black. Okay, so there's my bat. Now you don't need this thing anymore, so this thing was called bat ping, and you could just turn it off, you know, or you could delete it, but I'll just turn it off. And this is called vector, so I'm going to double click on this, call it bat, and then I'll get it in here, so everything's in here on letter. Now what is rectangle? Where the hell is rectangle? Oh, it's this thing. Now that thing's the path, so name that the path. So I have my hills, which are locked. I have my path here. I can even lock my path. I have a bat here. You can make multiple bats, and you can just hold your Option key or your Alt key to do that. So we have bats. We have our text over here all ready to roll. Now I'll show you some things in the next video. We can import some plugins that we could use if we want to warp it a little bit. There's kind of an hokey kind of warp that you can use, or you can skip the warp, but you can do multiple strokes here, so we should be able to do that. So the text should be easy to do. And also we can move bats around, and you could trace anything you want, but you might be saying, what about all that cool stuff we did with zombies and trees, all that tracing stuff? Can we do that? No, but there's a plugin to do it. So if you want to do this before we start part 2, you could go in here and just go to plugins. Now I already have it. It's called Warp It. So if you just go find Warp It, just go to find, if you don't see anything in here, just go to find more plugins and type in Warp It. And now there's Warp It right there, but if I type in Warp It, just click on it and then hit run and you'll have Warp It available. And I'll show you how to use that in the next video. And I'll X out of here. And then another one we're going to use is called Image Tracer. So again, you could just go to, I'll click out of here just so you see where I went. I went to File, or I went to this Figma icon and I went to Plugins. I went to Plugins, and now Image Tracer is showing there for me, but you may not have it. So just go to Find More Plugins, search Image Tracer, that's what it's called, and then click on it and then hit run. And you could run Image Tracer, and it actually works pretty well for black and white images. So if you have Warp It Image Tracer, we'll try that in the next video and just try to do some things we did in Illustrator. So the only kind of rough part we had so far was making these paths and making them rough. The pencil tool, unless I'm missing something on how to make a closed path, and I did look stuff up, but when I look stuff up for Figma, I get some weird things. I see things and they're like, oh yeah, sure, you can do it, but you can't really do it. So maybe I'm missing some stuff, and if you find out that, oh, it's easy to make a closed path with your pencil if you just hold this key when you're done, maybe that works. I don't know. It does with Illustrator sometimes. It makes a closed path and you have to hold a key and you'll see a little circle there. But this was a little hard. The path wasn't bad. The hills, as long as they were nice and soft, weren't bad. The gradient wasn't bad. Tracing the bat wasn't bad. And we're going to trace some images and we're going to throw our text in there, and we're going to do that in part 2. Now this is 10 Haunted Trail, and we're doing this in Figma, and you're doing this at home since we're not in class on Tuesday. So we'll see you with part 2.